day is a new week. It is Monday, April 15th. And what a time to have Andy Schectman on, the man who has been studying gold and silver longer than I have and knows the details of the math behind the hidden numbers is truly breathtaking. So, Andy, what a pleasure to have you here. Welcome back to the show. Thank you.
Great to be here, Bo. I'm glad to be here, buddy. Thanks for having me. And it's always an honor. Hope you and everyone else out there is doing well.
Woke up Friday morning, the 12th, watching silver blow vertical through $28, and it's topping out as more like a $1.60 vertical. And I knew it that the moment this is going to happen, the bullion banks are going to go in and smash it. And Andy, they took it down $2 on Friday. It went $1.60 vertical and it closed 40 cents negative. That's a $2 reversal off a top. So, and everybody's freaking out. I was watching posts on the week and everybody's saying, oh, silver's in a down cycle. It's going to go down now for a while. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is April. If there's ever a month that we're going to see historic moves possibly begin, it would be in the month of April because it's a biblical month. So we'll talk about that further. What's your take on what happened Friday?
You got it, brother. No, I mean, it's a drive-by shooting. It's the only way to explain it. At 3 p.m. New York time, there was someone, and let's talk about gold. I don't have the exact numbers in silver, but $1.6 billion of gold futures were sold in 3 minutes, which temporarily knocked down the price. And now this is not the way that you would ever initiate a trade. That trader would be shot and fired probably in that order, because you're guaranteeing the worst settlement. And at a, you know, the only group, or it's the only exchange open at that time. So we know it wasn't Shanghai. We know it wasn't London. It was done in New York. It was done by the bullion banks. They if you want to maximize a trade of that magnitude, you would draw it out over time. You don't dump it all onto the price in one moment. And it's one of these deals that is 100% intentionally. And this is a situation where you could look at the opposite of that, where, you know, on Friday the week before, Monday the week before, gold opened up 7% in Shanghai. It was limit up. But what was interesting about that is that, you know, when it hit New York later that day, it opened up, well, let me take that back. Right before it opened up in Shanghai, it was straight down. It was down 50 cents on silver, and it was down $30 or so in gold. And then bang, it shot right back up within moments and actually triggered the stops in Shanghai. It was up 7% limit up, which shut down the futures market for a little bit of time. Gold moved up 3% literally in a matter of minutes. So what that tells me is it's desperation, whether it be hitting it into Asia where they knock it down and it pops right back up, or showing fantastic strength for the whole week and then a sale all done in 3 minutes specifically to smash the price down. This isn't the way things are done. And it's a situation that reeks of desperation, and they're running out of bullets. I mean, look at gold; it's almost right back up. It's up $47. Let's see what it's at right now. Last I looked, you know, we're up to $23.96 right now, up $47 and change. We're right back up to $2,400, and so all of this suppression will end badly. All manipulations end badly, and I really do believe it is that the rest of the world understands the problem, not only with owning dollars, but more so owning treasuries. And these are assets that can be sanctioned. And our brain dead Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, parading in Brazil, the backyard of Russia, a charter member of BRICS, saying we need to not only sanction, but to confiscate the $380 billion in Forex reserves that we're holding on, or sanctioning against the Russians, and use it to fund the Ukrainian war. Or now, just a couple days ago, in a speech she gave to CNBC, basically saying, Janet Yellen, that, you know, we're ready to sanction the Chinese banks, and if they do anything in terms of aiding their ally in BRICS, the Russians, in the Ukrainian war effort, well, they'll sanction all of their banks, their companies, and the government itself. So it's okay for us to aid the Ukrainian war, our ally, but it's not for them. The hypocrisy is what is pushing everyone away from treasuries and dollars and into gold and silver, which are assets that are not simultaneously someone else's liability. When we speak of silver, it's the same exact thing. China has imported Japan has imported roughly 400 million ounces of silver in the past 2 years. And that's almost the same amount of silver that came off the COMEX. I mean, very, very close. That's 10 times more than is in the registered category in the COMEX system right now. Those are the bars that are backing all of the contracts. But if you take a look at what they've done recently in February, those numbers were up substantially. Let me just give you the numbers here. In February, India's silver imports increased by 260%. Last year, they bought 3,625 tons, more than anyone in the world. They've already imported almost 3,000 tons. They're almost where they were last year, and it's only a couple months into the year. So there are countries that understand exactly what is happening with the Western suppression of commodities, using it against us to de-dollarize, specifically because of the weaponization of the dollar and of the treasury market, where if we don't align ideologically, it doesn't matter if people view us as hypocritical, too bad. We'll take it and we'll sanction you and maybe even confiscate and use those funds against your the country that you're in the middle of a war with. The whole thing is messed up and upside down, and this is exactly why I believe, regardless of all of the indicators like positive real return, and we know that the CPI number is a bunch of crap anyway, but if you take it for what it is, okay, fine, positive real return or a very strong dollar, all these inverted correlations that would really never be very bullish for gold. It doesn't matter. The central banks, they don't care about these correlations. They're sick and tired of the Western hypocrisy and hegemony, and they don't trust us any longer. And so they are shedding treasuries, they are shedding dollars, and they're putting a floor under the price of gold and silver. And when the Western banks are stupid enough to come in and dump this kind of quantity in a 3-minute session where the price just collapses, this is just playing right into the hands of the rest of the world, who is accumulating gold and silver at our Western subsidized prices, even when China is offering a $3 premium right now on silver, trying to attract arbitrage. So they're looking for any specific way to accumulate metals that aren't nailed down, even by paying a 10% premium in Shanghai for those traders who can buy in the West and deliver in Shanghai. So when we come in and smack the hell out of it and drop it down, that plays right into the hands of the foes, of our foes, and not a good thing, and it won't end well. No manipulations ever do.
Who is heading up the our foes category? It's the BRICS. And who's heading up the BRICS? Putin. Okay, so he's the president of the BRICS. Let's have a listen to what he's
president
said.
of the BRICS this year. It's an important distinction to make that they rotate their presidency. It was in South Africa last year. It's in Russia this year. More of a if everyone gets equal say at the table, so to speak. So you're right. He is the president this year.
And what did he say when Tucker interviewed him? Let's have a listen, because it's truly fascinating. We're getting insight into what he's thinking. So here you go.
To use the dollar as a tool of foreign policy struggle is one of the biggest strategic mistakes made by the U.S. political leadership. The dollar is the cornerstone of the United States power, but they won't stop printing. What does the debt of $33 trillion tell us about? As soon as the political leadership decided to use the US dollar as a tool of political struggle, a blow was dealt to this American power. I would not like to use any strong language, but it is a stupid thing to do and a grave mistake. Look at what is going on in the world. Even the United States allies are now downsizing their dollar reserves. Seeing this, everyone starts looking for ways to protect themselves. But the fact that the United States applies restrictive measures to certain countries, such as placing restrictions on transactions, freezing assets, etc., causes grave concern and sends a signal to the whole world. Do you even realize what is going on or not? Does anyone in the United States realize this? What are you doing? You are cutting yourself off. All experts say this. Ask any intelligent and thinking person in the United States what the dollar means for the US. You're killing it with your own hands.
Right. That's exactly right, Bo. And listen to the way the IMF describes gold. Okay, the International Monetary Fund says that as per International Monetary Fund (IMF), gold is the only universally accepted financial asset that is not someone else's liability. The financial assets are economic assets that are financial instruments. Financial assets include financial claims and, by convention, monetary gold held in the form of gold bullion. A financial claim is a financial instrument that has a counterparty liability. Gold bullion is not a claim and does not have a corresponding liability. It is treated as a financial asset. However, because of its special role as a means of financial exchange and international payments by monetary authorities and as a reserve asset held by monetary authorities. So, in other words, these central banks are accumulating gold specifically because of what he just said. It is an asset that is not simultaneously someone else's liability. And I want to read you one other thing explaining why the suppression on COMEX is playing right into their hands. There was a report that just came out by one of the Russian finance ministers talking about all the things that we've said about the new currency that is coming out. And he said, indeed, it will be a currency with two baskets, one of the corresponding currencies of the nations involved and the other of commodities, primarily gold. We've known all of that. He said it would be digital so that it sidesteps the banking system. It will be based on Project M-Bridge, which is the ability to go cross-border. We just saw the first ever cross-border gold transaction using digital yuan, but it's sidesteps SWIFT. We've known all of that, but here's the interesting part, and I've been saying this, but listen to what he had to say. He said the second part is price. For the moment, let's underline for the moment. Price is determined by Western speculation. We produce these commodities and we consume them, but we do not have our own price mechanism, which will balance supply and demand. During the COVID panic, the price of oil fell to nearly zero. Now, we know he was off on that. It went to negative $40 a barrel. Anyways, he says it's impossible to make any strategic planning or economic development if you do not control prices of basic commodities. Here's the kicker, Bo. Price formation with this new currency should get rid of Western exchanges of commodities. So they are using the suppression that we import that we impose upon the commodity exchanges to drain the exchanges, to de-dollarize at substantially lower prices, subsidized prices. They understand exactly what we are doing. They know we've weaponized the dollar and they know we manipulate the metal. So they use it against us. And this is why it doesn't matter what the correlations say. It doesn't matter what you're giving up 5% for treasuries. They don't care. They don't care about all of these inverse correlations. They just want the gold because it is an asset free from counterparty liability, from default, and from sanction. And this is something that I think is a grave mistake, and why it leads me to believe that, this is something that it's too stupid to be stupid. It almost has to be planned, where you have Janet Yellen saying China is entitled to have a relationship with Russia, but anything that we see as being a provision of military aid from Beijing will trigger sanctions. So now we're threatening to sanction China. So this is just, you come to a point where you realize, well, it's okay for us to help the Ukraine, but it's not okay for them to help Russia, or we're going to sanction you, the banks, your companies, and your country. This is going to end very badly, and this is why gold and silver are exhibiting such tremendous strength. Forget about inflation, forget about all of the technicals. None of that matters in an environment that all of a sudden, I think people realize it's about self-preservation and breaking free from the hypocrisy and the dominance of the West that I really think doesn't really fly any longer.
Well, you're speaking about sanctioning China. See, that's a massive problem, because when you consider that China is attached with the BRICS. When you go study the BRICS, it's BRI, Brazil, Russia, India, China. You see the C in the BRICS is China. So this is a huge issue that Andy is speaking about, because the BRICS comprise, from what I've gathered, is about 70% roughly of the world population. This is not Saddam Hussein or Gaddafi, a little nation. We are talking 70% of the world's population is now stepping up to say anti-dollar. We've had enough. Now, we've just listened to Andy speak. He's got incredible knowledge and statistics that he's referenced. Let's listen to some other experts. And I just want to put the pieces together that this is just not Andy's or my opinion. This is Andy's researched opinion. This is what I know scripturally, biblically is going on. And then other experts, you look at all the other experts are putting all together, and you've got to put a big, massive question mark out in your head going, what is going on here? You just can't ignore the facts. And so let's look at some more facts here. Let me play this video and let's watch this 2-minute video. Here we go.
Let's talk about all of this, the U.S. economy and policy, with FedEx founder and executive chairman Fred Smith.
Our financial capabilities to print money at will is dependent on the dollar remaining the reserve currency. And the so-called BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, have set out on a deliberate course to dethrone the dollar. If that happens and we can't sell our bonds, I can assure you the living standards that we all enjoy today are going to be a thing of the past.
The BRICS group is set to introduce a new currency backed by gold, in contrast to the credit-backed US dollar, with countries lining up to join the growing initiative.
If oil starts trading in non-petrodollars, such as gold or a basket of currencies, or if China and Russia start trading in yuan and ruble rather than US dollars, that demand isn't there. And the way of life for the average American will be done. It will be worse than the Great Depression.
The US dollar has seriously discredited itself as the global reserve currency. That's according to Russia's foreign minister, who's been holding talks in Moscow with his counterparts from Persian Gulf countries. A recent widespread report has concluded that more than half of central banks worldwide plan to shift their holdings from US dollars to gold.
I'm talking about our currency being used throughout the world.
You want it to remain. You want the dollar to remain the world's reserve currency.
Well, I think it's bigger than losing any war. I think if it doesn't, look, we are already reverting to third world status in many ways. You look at our airports, you look at our terminals, you look at our filthy roads and broken roads and everything else. We're like a third world country. We have something that's very powerful, and that's our dollar all over. But you take a look at what's happening to it now with other countries not using it. And you know, China wants to replace it with the yuan. And it was unthinkable with us. Unthinkable. Would never have happened. Now people are thinking about it. That could happen.
Yep. There you go.
Putin basically stated so clearly, he goes, they're doing this is completely stupid is actually his word. He used the word stupid thing to be doing. They're weaponizing the dollar, and the nations have now come together as one. See, this is the problem. When countries come together, global big superpowers come together against, yes, the United States is the world's financial system, the Federal Reserve note, not federal, not a reserve. No, note means it burns in a fire. But the point is, they've been weaponizing this. We're at a 50-year mark. So this is a historic time point. We got 70% of the world's population saying, we've had enough. 70% of the world's population's had enough of this. The man who's leading up the BRICS, Putin, is basically telling us that by weaponizing the dollar is a stupid thing to be doing. And now we're watching silver and gold jump vertical. And what are the bullion banks doing? Throwing everything but the kitchen sink they got at it to slam it down. And then boom, the next day, look what happens. They slam it down Friday, shoots back up. As we're speaking, I was last checking, silver's up like 95 cents at the market close on Monday. So we're watching historic things that everything they're throwing at it is literally reversing the next day. So these are unprecedented times that we're living in. And we're seeing how all the pieces are coming together. And then take it from here, Andy, but there is a prophetic word of Kim Clement, who basically stated the brothers of Goliath. Goliath is the United States or the dollar. The brothers of Goliath would be the BRICS nations. So this is a 10 or a 14-year-old prophecy. It stated, the brothers of Goliath stand in glee, meaning they're happy and they're about to do something. We will cripple you, the US dollar.
The giant of death, the giants that have come, the brothers of Goliath, stand in glee watching America. We will cripple you. You will lose your credit. And he will take a simple stone and he will hold it up and they will laugh at him. But the plan is so brilliant, says the Lord. It could only have been given by me.
We will cripple you, the US dollar. We will ruin your credit. So discuss how that prophecy could be fulfilled, because this is exactly prophetic word. The brothers of Goliath stand in glee. We, the brothers, the BRICS, will cripple you. We will ruin and destroy your credit.
You don't even have to have the common settlement currency to initiate that. You trade with one another in local currencies. We're seeing that everywhere. All of the BRICS nations are trading with one another in their local currencies and using gold as a substitute for U.S. treasuries. Listen to what the chairman of the Shanghai Gold Exchange said in May of 2014. He said the Shanghai Gold Exchange will change the current gold market with its consumed in the East but priced in the West arrangement. When China has the right to speak at the international gold market, the true price of gold will be revealed. This was in 2014. The Chinese have now just launched a new public blockchain infrastructure for the Belt Road Initiative, which connects 75% of human population, 50% of global GDP. Right now, it's 150 plus countries, and it's all outside of the SWIFT system. The main focus, it's called ultra large scale blockchain infrastructure platform for the Belt Road Initiative. And the main focus is to create a public blockchain infrastructure platform that will be able to support the implementation of cross-border cooperation projects along the Belt Road Initiative. You start to add all of these groups together, as I've been saying, they're all the same groups for 4 years. The Belt Road, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Eurasian Economic Union, and the BRICS, and you're talking damn near close to 90% of human population. And I've said it 1,000 times on your show and others, what makes the dollar is our relationship with Saudi Arabia. We're the petrodollar. They value oil in dollars. They and by extension OPEC, and the excess proceeds go into U.S. treasuries. Well, now they're selling everything from wheat and copper and corn and you name it. Like, for example, China's buying wheat from Russia and corn and soybeans from Brazil. They're paying for it in yuan, and that yuan is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which is a tier one asset, the only other one, of course. And so when you talk about how it all breaks, how the whole thing busts apart, look, when you weaponize the dollar, when you sign an executive order to go green and you start weaponizing it and threatening to weaponize it against the main counterparts to this BRICS group, you're just either stupid or it's planned. And then you look at what's happening inside the country, the destabilization of this country, the lack of unity, the lawlessness, the justice system, the wokeness, the cancel culture, all of this crap only makes it worse, and it's not lost on our foes or our allies. And so it's accentuating and accelerating this de-dollarization. And if and when, as Marin Katusa said, smart dude, and they lose the reserve status. I mean, I've been saying this for 4 years. People laughed at me when I said it, but it's coming little by little. It is coming. And when Saudi Arabia says, look, you guys have gone green, and you mentioned 50 years, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia just recently gave a speech and said, China was our most important trading partner this year and for the next 50. Those 50 years, that's well thought out. It was 50 years ago we signed the Petro Agreement. He's saying that you're going green, you weaponize the dollar, we are not aligned ideologically, and once we get everything in position, along with the majority of human population, the majority of all the shipping lanes throughout the world, the majority of all of the oil and gas, the majority of the rare earth metals, the majority of the soft grain like wheat production, the Chinese own the London Metals Exchange. They bought it. That's the platform that trades mostly commodities like copper and steel and zinc and lead. So they're buying everything. It's not just precious metals. It's not striking deals in soft commodities. It's also buying all the hard commodities and engulfing the majority of human population in three of the four largest nuclear arsenals on the planet, and on and on. It's called critical mass. And once they get to that point where the West will have no way to really challenge on any level, militarily, financially, you name it, that's when Saudi Arabia and the rest of OPEC says, listen, thanks for the memories. We're moving away from taking the dollar for oil. And boom, just like that, the world changes. Every country in the world's had to hold these dollars for 50 years to buy oil. And if that changes, the dynamic changes immeasurably. The demand for the dollar disappears. The demand for the treasury disappears. So who finances our insatiable debt binge fiscal policy appetite, where we're accumulating $1 trillion every 3 months in debt? Took over 200 years to do the first time. Now we're doing it in 90 days. And who finances that? Well, the only one left stupid enough to do it is the Federal Reserve. This is called monetization of assets. It leads to Weimar Republic Germany and hyperinflation. It's the Great Reset, one way or the other. And so, yeah, you would think we would be doing all we could to cling to the privileges of being the world reserve currency. But there again, our lead economic advisor to the U.S. government, Jared Bernstein, is a man who advocates for losing it. And you couldn't ask for a better way to lose it than by going green and weaponizing the dollar against Russia and China and Iran. That's interesting. They're all BRICS members, and they're all members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They're all on the Belt Road Initiative, as is every OPEC country. So this is a situation that is beginning to accelerate, and I don't think we've even begun to see what it looks like if we lose the petro status, something we should be clinging to the privilege and doing all we can to let the world know that we are the beacon of justice. We do have a open system that allows people to emigrate to this country legally, and that we do value God, and we do value the nuclear family, and we do value hard work and merit over lifestyle and color or creed or religion or any of this crap that's all over the place. It's almost too stupid to be stupid. Is it intended? I don't know, but the acceleration of the stupidity when Janet Yellen now threatens to sanction China after being in Brazil saying we need to confiscate Russian assets to fund the Ukrainian war in Brazil, of all places. I mean, could you be any more naive and stupid, or is that on purpose? And then you put it all together with the Belt Road, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which both Iran has formally been admitted into and Saudi Arabia applied. It's the largest regional financial and military organization in the world. You put all of this stuff together, and in every metric, human population, GDP, natural resources, military might, I mean, on and on and on. And it is a formidable foe that too many people poo-poo, because the little by little by little, people start to, the length and time it takes for that little by little to materialize, people disregard and they blow off. And then when the all at once happens, they're shocked by how fast that all at once really happens. And that's kind of what's happening right now. The people who get it, they're preparing best they can for it. That's the central banks. That's the people who understand, listen to you, and maybe listen to some of what I've been saying. And most people, unfortunately, will be caught completely off guard. Because I'll tell you what, if on a Sunday night, Monday morning, Saudi Arabia said we're not taking, and nor is OPEC, dollars for oil anymore, and it's not a stretch. Iran's not, Russia's not, and the United Arab Emirates, the seventh largest producer of oil in the world, who was just admitted to BRICS, said they don't want it anymore either. So is it that outrageous to believe that this could happen? No, it's not. We're incentivizing it, and that's when it gets real. But that's when it really gets real.
Well, a couple of things you referenced. You talked about oil going to negative $38 a barrel. You know, it was actually $38 to $40 a barrel, and that happened specifically. Again, see, that was a historic financial event that happened. It's the importance of it is the month that it happened. It happened in April. It happened in April 20th of the year 2020. So what I'm trying to illustrate is historic or biblical things tend to happen in the month of April, and oil going to negative $38 a barrel is the word you could use is stupid, because it doesn't make sense. How can oil, they're going to pay you, is what it means, $38 a barrel to take the barrel of oil? That it's foolishness, but yet it happened. The point I'm trying to make is these things are happening in a very critical month. The month is April is a month of Passover from a Jewish, or not even Jewish, from a godly perspective. Very, very important month. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is you referenced the year 2014. There's another article that I basically had in my archives that I've been speaking about since last week. It was also written in December of 2014, and this one was by the CME. So I want to get your take on this, because there's no reason why the CME would write this letter. There's no reason, unless they knew at some point in the future something could happen. And like you stated a few minutes ago, you stated it's all good, and then suddenly everything changes, right? And so this is a very good example how suddenly everything could suddenly change. And let's get your take on this article here, Andy. This is the article that was written right here by the CME Group of December 5, 2014. But you also are referencing what's called limit up. And so these are limit up instructions that are programmed into their computers. And so we'll start at gold here. every $100, level 1, level 2, level 3. So every $100 they shut down trading. On silver, every $3 they shut down trading. From what I gather, it's about 5 minutes that they're going to do this. And then it'll talk about copper, platinum, and palladium. So my question is, why would they have these unless they know something potentially could happen? And this is now 10 years ago that this was drafted. So give us your input on this.
One of the big bullion banks basically own the CME. I mean, the big bullion banks are the shareholders. They're the ones that have the big trading platform, or the big trading accounts with the CME group, and they're the ones that are largely short. And you're right, you can lose unlimited on the way up if you're short. And it's interesting, I mean, in referencing it to
just repeat that one more. Sorry, Andy, and repeat that one more time. You can lose what on the way up?
You can lose unlimited if you are short, especially naked short.
This is unlimited losses. That's why if gold or silver below vertical, if they don't have stops or a way of getting out, this is unlimited losses to the bullion banks. Please continue.
Right. If you go long, you can lose whatever you put up. If you go short, in theory, the limitation is limitless. I mean, there is no limit if it's moving against you and you're short. And I think that it's important to note that there really is no real top for hard assets in fiat terms. I mean, I think the central banks and the big traders, just like people listening to this show, do you want to be the last person holding dollars and no one wants to give you any gold or silver for them? I think central banks feel that same way. And if you have these big commercial banks who have been doing the bidding of the West, there's a term in statistics or in economics, rather, called Gibson's paradox, which is the inverse relationship between real interest rates and the price of gold. And that's why this whole thing originally started. And they were massively short. Now that's changing, and interest rates are rising a little bit, but the bullion banks, to protect the bond market, to protect the system, it's the same reason that they did this to begin with, because of making the Western system seem stronger than it truly is. You have to kill the canary in the mine shaft. And that's the price of gold and silver. They have stepped on it and stepped on it and stepped on it forever, for going, all the way back to the London gold pool. So it is the big commercial banks, the bullion banks, that are typically the ones that are massively short, and naked short often too, where they're selling just because they have a big enough pocketbook. They may not have the metal backing those short positions, and quite frankly probably don't, but they know that they have enough of a deep pocket to be able to do this. And if you look, when the COMEX was started, in 1974, right the day after President Ford made it legal again, they basically said to themselves, look, we can go 1-to-1, which supply demand will really could hurt the dollar. Supply demand fundamentals, people sell dollars and buy commodities, just like the finance minister was saying there, that they don't have the ability to control it. Supply demand, the West controls it through speculation. So instead, they created an environment. Keep in mind, back then, China and Russia and India, these were countries that were basically third world in terms of being able to stand up to the Western finances and sophistication and dominance. So they didn't worry about it. So they create a system where I pretend to pay and you pretend to give me my gold. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, they rehypothecate the crap out of the contracts. Right now, I think silver is almost 1,800% rehypothecated, meaning 18 people hold a contract for every one that would actually get the metal. And it's probably more than that. And gold is rehypothecated a ton also. So they can create more leverage. But in terms of pretending to pay for it, keeping in mind that traditionally no one ever stood for delivery. This is a new phenomenon where central banks who have become sophisticated, cunning, wealthy, and understand what's happening, they're standing for delivery. But where I pretend to pay for it, if I have, if I want to buy and control a 100-ounce gold contract, I just have to have like $8,000 in my margin account. As long as the price doesn't go against me, or I have to get a margin call, then the trade itself is just a few bucks. So now I control, with having money in my margin account, 100 ounces. So I really didn't even pay for it. So I pretend to pay for it. They pretend to say I own it, because most people don't stand for delivery. It's a hedge or it's an investment, but I'm not going to stand for delivery. Almost 99% never did. That's changing. So the point of it is, they created an environment where through leverage they can control the price, and people don't even have to pay for it. It's a system that is inherently corrupt. And when it ends, if you're naked short, when things go real bad, I would caution, I would ask people to go listen to probably the most important interview I've ever heard in this industry, and that's Chris Marcus's interview, Arcadia Economics, with Bart Chilton, the former head of the CFTC, where he admitted that Bear Stearns went bankrupt because of this, because silver went from like 12 to 21, and they had the largest short position ever in any commodity traded on COMEX, and they went bankrupt. And they called Jamie Dimon in to take over the position. He said, "I'll take it over." He said, "But we'll be in position limits in violation." And he was told, "Fine, you got a certain amount of time to get your book in order." And at the end of the time frame, Bart Chilton went back to his supervisors and said, not only have they not got their position limits in order, they've increased them. They're in violation of the agreement of antitrust law. They need to be prosecuted. And he said, "I was told, Bart, back down. This is a political decision." Well, Bart died a week later. Now, I don't know if he died of cancer, supposedly. I don't know if it's coincidental or he was just trying to clear his conscience. But the point you take away from it is that it bankrupted Bear Stearns. And he says that Jamie Dimon was aware of this, that he was brought into Ben Bernanke's office and Hank Paulson's office, and they admitted this. He admitted it. He was the former head of the CFTC. So when you talk about this stuff happening, hell yeah, it's as dumb as a mud wall to be short, naked short in this environment. So those stops, as we were saying offline, would be the last ditch attempt for them to try and cover and let this go from bankrupting a Bank of America or a JP Morgan, having this massive, really stupid naked short position that, if things went haywire, could, just like it did to Bear Stearns, really flip the table on them.
Yeah, the naked short thing is truly incredible. And I find it fascinating that you referenced a price movement of silver from $12 to $21, and that just that move in and of itself bankrupt Bear Stearns. So I want to share this one screen with you. I spent a little time this weekend to put together a price target for silver, and this channel is a chart pattern that goes back 160 years. So I want to share this with you and the viewers, and let's have a look at this here. So we're having silver right now battle at $28. As we're speaking, silver's over 20. I think it's at $29 right now.
29 bucks right now.
Okay, so it's breaking this resistance line at 28. We've seen this going back to 1864. There's a touch there. There's a touch in 1980 with the Hunt brothers. And if we go to the top of the channel, it takes silver to $68. On the bottom channel, we got silver in the year 2001, and then on the plunge in the year 2020. It's interesting, but this channel gives us a target for silver at $68 whenever the price explosion happens. So you're referencing a move from $12 to $21. Andy, imagine a move from right now, $29 to $68. What would that do to the banks?
It would crush them. It would crush all of the naked shorts, whether it's the banks or the hedge funds. It depends who's on the wrong side. I have a feeling that it would be the hedge funds who take the wrong side of it at that point, as the commercial banks typically are on the right side. But it's interesting. If you take today's price of gold and you divide it by 37, you get 64. Now that's pretty damn close to that channel. Why do I say 37? Because in 2010, I was telling people we're at 85 to 1. It's the second time in human history that we've seen an 85 to 1 gold to silver ratio. We got to tell everyone to trade their gold to silver right now. And I called all my clients. I said, I've never seen this before. In fact, it's the second time ever that it's happened. This is an anomaly. Sell your gold to me. I'll sell it to the market. And in theory, you'll get back 85 ounces of silver. Well, if we remember that roughly 42 to 1 has been the average price ratio for the last 100 plus years, and it's coming out of the ground at 7 to 1. Anyway, 7 months later, it went to 37 to 1, $50 silver, 19.15 gold. If you take today's price right now of 23.90 and divide it by 37, you get 64.30. Not too far off from your top line channel, and that would just be past its 200-year average of the gold to silver ratio. So when you talk about catalysts, you got Mexico's president who's on the way out right now, and he's losing in the polls to a woman who is would be the first woman president of Mexico. But this guy who's on the way out, the current president, is trying to change the Constitution on his way out and amend it to say no open pit mining ever again. And Mexico is the first or second largest producer of silver in the world, and they're trying to say no open pit mining and change the Constitution. And the successor, this woman, is all for that. She backs that initiative. So when you talk about a catalyst, a decreasing supply and increasing demand in things like military applications, in green and digital applications, and then realize that a main source of supply could very quickly come offline, and a country like China, who's bought 400 million ounces in the last 2 years and just increased its month over month acquisition by nearly 300%, it's getting real. When you talk about those kind of numbers, let's just be real for 1 minute. All right. Gold is basically $2,400. So let's take $2,400 and divide it by 7, which is the mining ratio right now. You get $342 an ounce. When we talk about
So just to pause, that's what the price of silver should be in ground. But right now it's $29.
Well, the price of silver right now actually should be $340 because it's the ratio.
The ratio,
gold and silver, what is coming out of the ground at a 7-to-1 ratio. So take the price of gold, divide it by 7, it's $340. Now, you got commercial banks right now that are coming out. You got Bank of America that says gold should be $3,000 by the end of the year. You got UBS saying $4,000. You got Goldman Sachs saying $2,700. So how high does it really go? And what is that real silver to gold ratio, especially if you take out of the mix the suppression on COMEX, the price could really go higher than anyone thinks possible. That's not the reason to buy it. You buy it because it's wealth, and the biggest money in the world is showing you that by its accumulation. You don't buy it to get wealthy. It is wealth, but it is an opportunity that I don't think I've ever seen anything like it in finance in 34 years, where you have really amazing upside potential and virtually nothing in the way of downside risk in an asset that has no counterparty liability. So yeah, to me, it's probably the value of a generation. And I mean that 100%, even if I didn't own a precious metals company, if I were completely honest, researching what I've been researching, I'd have a hard time saying otherwise.
I've said in pretty much every one of my podcasts, the financial system is a fraud. Andy just stated the financial system is complete and utter corruption. It's a complete and utter corrupt system. Go back and listen to the podcast. Listen to how Andy Schectman is literally describing how they take naked shorts, how they basically hypothecate silver and gold. So that would be like selling a house. You own a house and you sell it to 1,000 people. 1,000 people think they own the home, but there's only one house. That's called rehypothecation.
Well, another way of calling it is a Ponzi scheme. Madoff never thought people would cash out. Right. And so you keep going on until everyone says, I need to redeem. And that's when you have a problem. If everyone stood for delivery, it would be exposed as being a scam. And that's the thing. And that's why the people who have been delivering have not gone all in to bankrupt the COMEX. They'll do exchange for physical in London, or they'll drain off the ETFs. Do you really believe that as gold and silver going to the moon, that the ETFs are falling at a 45-degree angle in terms of investment in them? No, those are not redemptions going after Bitcoin and NVIDIA. Those are the commercial banks, the central banks, the sovereign wealth funds that are taking delivery out of the ETFs because they are what's called authorized participants, or they own a basket rather, which is a very large amount in the ETFs. And they do have that ability through share redemption to take physical possession. We don't, but the big guys do.
And then explain an ETF versus physical possession so the viewers can truly understand, because you got to understand, I've owned silver, I own gold, I have SLV, I have GLD. Explain to them they don't own anything if you hold paper contracts.
If you own GLD or SLV, I would strongly suggest you read pages 6 through 12 of the prospectus titled Risk Factors. And in it, you'll see the massive distancing from the custodian, where they have the right to use sub-custodians, but are not responsible for the errors and or omissions of the sub-custodians. They do not have the right to visit the premises of where the sub-custodians are storing the metal. And if the metal is inside of, for example, GLD does not meet London good delivery status, which is a 400-ounce gold bar. In other words, it's a lead bar painted gold. They are not responsible. And then the account is frozen at the time of the fraud, and there's an investigation that ensues. And if and when they finally get to the bottom of it, you are paid the value at the date of the investigation being discovered. So the metal could have run thousands of dollars an ounce, and you're screwed. And it's basically a price representation, and a poor price representation at that. And not only that, there's a 40 or 50 basis point management fee that you have to pay in order to have the privilege for owning an asset that when you sell is not even at the capital gains rate. It's at the collectible capital gains rate of 28%. And I believe the ETFs were vehicles that were set up so that if the government ever needed to confiscate, knowing what the end game really is, instead of going door to door to my house and your house and putting red tags on safe deposit boxes and all of those things and knocking on doors of people who have NRA stickers on their door, they can just simply entice the big funds and all of the financial advisors to throw all of their clients who want interest in metals into SLV and GLD. Say you got, there you go, you got exposure to metals. And then they come in on a Friday night and they close those two funds. And who's the administrator of SLV? Oh, that's BlackRock and JP Morgan. And GLD, oh, that's HSBC Bank. You're talking the criminal cartel banks that suppress the price and pay billions of dollars in fraud remediation. So now they closed SLV and GLD on a Friday night, and all of the money that you thought you had in metals is now sitting in your money market. Maybe they even pay you a premium for it. And they look at the world in the face and they say, what? We didn't do anything. The prospectus tells us we can do this. Heck, if you still want gold and silver, you can buy it right now. Go into the open market and buy it. We didn't make it illegal. We just closed a couple ETFs. And SLV is like the first or second largest stockpile of silver in the world, held by the company that paid a $920 million fine for suppressing the metals market, yet is still allowed to control the world's largest silver trust. And HSBC Bank, look at how many billions they've paid in everything from LIBOR fixing to dealing with drug money, like Central and South American drug money laundering. All of this stuff, yet they're allowed to be the custodian of GLD. They come in on a Friday night, they take all that gold, they're sitting on the second largest stockpile of silver in the world, only second to theirs, and then the third or fourth largest stockpile of gold in the world without breaking laws or infringing any civil liberties. They are ridiculously bad programs. So the point of it is that ETFs are not the same thing. They are a price representation, and in most cases, a poor one at that. And in my opinion, a tool for future confiscation so that they can have their cake and eat it too without facing the global backlash of still trying to be the world reserve currency in the center of free trade in the world, and yet activating eminent domain and Venezuelan-style nationalization of assets. They don't go hand in hand, yet the stupidity we see coming out of our government and our Fed is enough to make me think, well, geez, maybe they'll cross that line too. But all you can do in this world, Bo, as you know, is prepare the best you can and hope for the best. And that's about it at this point.
Well, I'll say one thing, Andy. If anybody knows the metals market, it is Andy Schectman. I got to tell you, what I basically said, the system, the financial system is a complete and utter fraud. What has Andy called it? He calls it a complete corrupt Ponzi scheme. So we've listened to other analysts literally tell you how the BRICS have had enough of all this chaos, meaning of all this corruption with the US dollar. And it's turned into a complete and utter corrupt Ponzi scheme. And that is the bottom line on what we want to have people truly understand. But this comes down to free will, free choice. People can think all of this to be true or not true. Free will to choose. But again, if you own paper, it's paper and it burns in a fire. And that's what Andy was discussing with regard to SLV, GLD, and all these stock options. On the other side of it is the real stuff, real gold, real silver, ounces. I want to finish on this one point, understanding the importance of April. How this plays out, I got no idea. No one does, except God. But I want people to understand this one thing. Let's look at April with regards to Bible or to biblical cycles, okay? So today is the 15th. A week ago today was the eclipse. Now, why is that important? Because when we look at, Andy actually referenced the whole point. Oil going to negative $38 a barrel was this event right here, April 20th, the year 2020. 40 days later was Pentecost to the exact day. Coincidentally, the April 8th eclipse that happened last Monday, what a coincidence. 40 days from the eclipse is, oh, Pentecost. What a coincidence. You see, at Pentecost, 40 days after oil going to negative $30 a barrel, the George Floyd riots broke out. Peace was taken from the earth. All hell broke out with wars, chaos, rioting. Everything happened on the 40-day mark from oil going to negative $38 a barrel. Why that's important is because we've got two very big events coming up. One is next week. A week from today is Passover. Now, what happens? Again, I don't know. But I'm telling you, the angel of death that showed up to Pharaoh showed up at Passover. Jesus died on the cross at Passover. This was specifically a historic event. It happened at Passover, and that would correlate to a week from today. Does something happen? I don't know, but I do know one thing that is a fact, and Andy and I both know something for a fact. Today, gold is toying with $2,400, and silver is toying with $28, $29, $30. It's just breaking through that $28 160-year resistance line. This is crazy, and we're watching it happen. So how this all plays out, I don't know. But I do know that the brothers of Goliath stand in glee. We're seeing a prophecy unfold as the BRICS are about to attack the dollar. When it happens, I don't know. But I'm telling you, we're in a biblical month. The month of April is biblical, and that leads us into the next month. 40 days from the eclipse is Pentecost, which is the weekend of the 18th, 19th. So how it all plays out, I don't know. I'm telling you, you better have your insurance policy, your financial insurance policy in order. Because if something goes down, go back and listen to all the things that Andy was speaking about, okay? He's not making this up. These are all truth statements that he's speaking. If God's going to intervene upon the world, silver and gold are going to blow vertical. You're going to see all those stops and everything get hit. You're going to see silver go to possibly $68. This is a bank killer. Look what it did to Bear Stearns with only a move from $12 to $21. How it all plays out, we're all going to watch together. But my point is, if you've got God's money, Haggai 2:8, the silver and the gold are mine, saith the Lord, you're sitting on the correct side of the fence. Because, and I'll finish with this, and Andy, you can maybe finish with one last point. When this event goes down, and should it go down, but it is going to go down, when this event happens and all these limit orders get hit, will anybody globally in the United States or globally be able to sell gold and silver when it's exploding like that in price? Or are all the dealers just going to shut down for a window of time?
It's when the COMEX blows up and there's no way to hedge risk that all the dealers will shut down. So it's more along the lines of when the Western system is exposed for being what it is and is no longer accepted, that's when we have problems. So until then, that's not the problem. But ultimately, you could argue it will be a problem when the price setting mechanism moves from the West to the East. And again, remember what the chairman of the Shanghai Gold Exchange said. Shanghai Gold Exchange will change the current gold market with its consumed in the East but priced in the West arrangement. When China has the right to speak in the international gold market, the true price of gold will be revealed. And that's exactly what they're saying, is that, you know, yeah, we'll play along until no one is stupid enough to sell us at these dumb prices anymore. And then we'll show you what real supply demand fundamentals are, not the rehypothecated, over-leveraged, under-capitalized fractional reserve system that we use right now on all commodities, where oil can go to -40 and gold and silver can just drop like that. It cuts both ways. And I think the jig is up on large part because the people that we've been doing this against across the globe are now much more industrialized, much more sophisticated, much more wealthy, much more legitimate. And I think that's the hard part for these commercial banks to deal with. And so, yeah, you're right. It will be something that it won't be a fizzle. It will be a big bang when that happens in terms of the ramifications to the entire gold and silver market globally. Right now, it still is operational, but you could argue in a system that is as rehypothecated and leveraged as this is, and the foes understand it and are using that leverage against you, until there's really no one willing to sell at those make-believe prices, it will not end well. As all manipulations end poorly.
That article that you stated, it was coincidentally in the same year, 2014, that these limits were put in. You see, there's no coincidences, because these people know at some point the gig will be exposed. And you do not want to be on the wrong side of this when this goes down. Gold and silver, in closing, are nothing but an insurance policy against these policy makers who are nothing but corrupt, crooked, and running a Ponzi scheme. God bless you, Andy. Thank you for being here.
God bless you too, brother. And let's do it again soon, and look forward to coming back and picking up where we left off. There'll be a lot to talk about, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Be well.
See you, Bo.
Hi, this is Bo Polny, and after thousands of requests, this is my official announcement. This is a heads up and a first glimpse of what I have been working on. I have been working on a book. This book is a prophetic understanding of God's perfect timing from creation to his return. It's going to be explosive. This is the first book I've ever written, and it will explain and illustrate with beautiful full color graphics of God's timing of events into the end of the age, the end of days. After reading it, you'll want to keep this beautiful book on your coffee table and share it with all of your friends and family. I'm telling you, it is amazing and you're going to love it. This book is going to open your eyes to the present day events and how they are occurring with mathematical perfection as they directly fulfill events prophesied in Revelation over 2,000 years ago. God speaks through his word. We know that. He also speaks through his servants, the prophets, and yes, he does speak through numbers. If you want to see how truly perfect his timing is, and the specific calculations he has revealed to me about our future into the end of the age, this book has all the incredible details. Are you ready to see the cover and a glimpse of inside images? Here you go. I doubt there's a book anywhere in the world like this one. It illustrates God's perfect timing from creation to the book of Revelation, including the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the 7 seals of Revelation, the great American eclipses, the coming great Egyptian eclipses, the coming aliens, yes, we talk about aliens, the rise of Antichrist and the mark of the beast, the coming rapture, and all the way to the likely timing of Christ's return, and much, much more. The mathematical calculations are beyond any human probabilities, clearly illustrating the end of days was written from the beginning by the hand of God. This book has a lot of surprises and will open your eyes as to how truly great our God is. I believe it's going to blow your mind and get you excited and prepared for the times ahead. It'll change the way you look at recent events in the world. It'll give you the power and understanding of how long we really have into the end of days and how all things are working together for good. That's why after reading this book, you're going to begin to see how Revelation, like the Bible, is actually the good news, as all things are manifesting in his perfect timing. So, how can you be the first to get your very own copy? Well, there's a link below this video. You can be the first to pre-order it and get it as soon as it comes out in April. And if you're one of the first 300 people to pre-order this book, you can receive a 30% discount by simply entering the code 777 at checkout. There's also a link for pre-orders on our website, so be sure to use that discount code. And yes, the book will be available on Amazon, however, no discount will be there. This is Bo Polny. I love you. Jesus loves you. And I know you will love this book. Thank you so much, and God bless.